I'm so glad you chose to be here once again. Just like last time, I want you to find a comfortable spot. Maybe take a deep breath and just give yourself credit for showing up. This work isn't easy, but it is the most important thing we can do. Let's have an honest conversation about love. So many of us say we want it, that we're searching for it, but it's worth asking a deeper question. Is it really love we are looking for, or is it the feeling of being chosen by someone? There is a profound difference between the act of loving and the desire to be loved. Most people who believe they are on a quest for love are, in reality, searching for validation. They are hoping to find a person on the outside who can prove something to them that they struggle to believe on their own sense of worth. They want to be seen, to be admired, to be desired. This isn't necessarily because they want to build a strong, mutual bond, but because they want to quiet the loud voice of insecurity that echoes inside them. The writer Erich Fromm pointed this out perfectly in his famous book, The Art of Loving. He noticed that most people don't see love as something they need to learn how to do. They see it as a prize they need to win. They seek to be loved because being loved feels easy and comforting. Actually loving someone, on the other hand, requires real work. It takes effort, patience, and commitment. Being loved feels like receiving a gift that fixes everything. The thinking goes, if someone loves me, then I must be important. If someone chooses me, then I have a right to exist. This is where a great illusion is born. You aren't actually seeking love. You're seeking the feeling of finally being enough. You want someone to look at you, through their actions or their touch, and communicate, you are worth it. This is because deep down, you don't fully believe it yourself. This desire for love isn't about sharing your life with someone. It's about trying to fill an internal void. It's an emptiness that nobody else can see, but you feel it every single day. This feeling might have started in childhood, perhaps from experiences of rejection, abandonment, or simply from never being taught how to see yourself as a valuable person without needing to constantly prove it. As a result, you may have grown up with the underlying belief that you need to be chosen to have value, that you must be desired to be relevant in the world. And every time someone does choose you, for a brief, wonderful moment, everything feels okay. The emptiness seems to vanish. But it always comes back, doesn't it? Fromm described this as an immature form of love. It's a love that comes from a deep need to merge with another person because you can't stand the feeling of being alone with yourself. This isn't genuine desire, it's dependency. It's not a true connection, it's an emotional addiction. The most damaging part is that our modern culture constantly fuels this idea. It sells us stories about finding someone to complete us, someone to save us, someone to give our entire existence meaning. But this is a fantasy packaged as romance. True, healthy love doesn't happen when someone else chooses you. It can only truly begin when you no longer need to be chosen. If these words are resonating with you, it's because a part of you already senses that something isn't right with how you approach relationships. You feel that a part of you is still waiting for someone else's approval. Perhaps you're tired of it all, tired of begging for attention, of changing who you are to be what others want, of clinging to the smallest sign of affection as if it's the only thing keeping you afloat. This isn't about making you feel comfortable, it's about waking you up. As long as you don't face the true source of your emptiness, you will continue to mistake neediness for love and dependency for connection. A cycle that only erodes you from the inside. Most people view the problem of love as the challenge of making themselves lovable enough to be loved by someone else, rather than focusing on their own capacity to actually love. This single sentence from Erich Fromm should be carefully considered because it exposes a deep-seated misunderstanding that affects nearly all modern relationships. The belief that love is something you receive, rather than something you actively give, turns what should be an experience of mutual growth into a frantic search for approval. Think about it. When the topic of love comes up, what are the common questions that pop into our heads? Will anyone ever choose me? Am I interesting enough? Am I good enough to be loved? These are normal questions, but they show a focus that is entirely directed outward. In this mindset, love becomes a trophy, and the person becomes a product on a shelf, trying to look appealing enough for someone to pick them. Fromm clearly identified this mistake. Wanting to be loved is the passive side of the equation. It's being the object of someone's affection. For many, being loved simply means being desired, and that's the core of the problem. We confuse the feeling of desire with the act of love. We mistake being seen with being truly cared for. Desire is a powerful feeling, but it is also famously fickle. It can ignite in an instant and vanish just as quickly. If your sense of self-worth is built on being desired by another person, you become a prisoner to their gaze. Your self-esteem becomes as fragile as a leaf in the wind. A single act of rejection, a period of silence, or a simple no can cause your inner world to crumble. But Fromm's analysis goes even deeper. He argues that this obsession with being loved is rooted in how we are taught to manage our emotional lives from a very young age. He believed that while most people are desperate for love, very few are actually capable of loving in a healthy way. This is because true love requires something most people are unwilling to develop: emotional maturity. To truly love someone means to step outside of yourself. It means looking at the other person with a sense of responsibility and care, not as someone who will fix or complete you, but as a whole person with whom you want to share your own wholeness. This is rare because we are all too busy trying to get noticed. We are busy trying to prove, with every social media like, every text message reply, and every small gesture of attention we receive, that we deserve to exist, that we are worth something. This confusion between loving and being loved creates relationships that are fragile and full of anxiety. They often start with incredible intensity, but end in devastation. These are relationships where two people come together not to build something new, but to take from each other what they feel they lack inside themselves. It isn't love, it's an emotional transaction, a silent agreement that says, "You make me feel like I'm worthy, and in return, I will give you what you want." But this kind of deal always comes with a hidden cost, and when the bill comes due, all that's left is that familiar feeling of emptiness. What is this void we are trying so desperately to fill with another person's affection? The answer lies in what Fromm called the deep-seated need to merge with another, the addiction to feeling complete through someone else, and the high price we pay for it. There is a huge difference between loving someone and needing someone. Yet, many people who say they are searching for love are actually just starved for something far more basic: validation. The goal isn't really to connect, it's to feel worthy. The goal isn't to share who you are, it's to be chosen as proof that you are enough. This is where Erich Fromm's ideas become so vital. He spoke of what he termed a neurotic need for fusion. In his view, our deepest desire isn't just for physical union, but for a merging of souls that allows us to escape our sense of separation, to break free from the prison of our own minds. Think about the power of that statement. When you chase someone in the hopes of being loved, you aren't really seeking love, you're seeking a way to merge with them. You are looking for a temporary escape from your own internal struggles. You want someone to hold you so tightly, emotionally, physically, and symbolically, that for a few moments you can forget yourself. You want the anxious voice in your head to go quiet, for the insecurity to fade, for the fear of not being enough, of being alone, or of being forgotten to disappear. But this is an impossible task to place on another person. No human being can permanently carry the burden of proving your worth to you. No relationship can heal a wound that is fundamentally yours to heal. As long as you hold on to this illusion, the idea that being chosen by someone will finally make you whole, you will live on an emotional roller coaster. You'll swing from the high of idealizing someone to the low of frustration, from thinking, "This is finally it," to feeling, "It didn't work out," again. Fromm was very clear that this kind of dependent merging is not love. It's a step backward in our emotional development, a relationship built on need rather than on freedom. He wrote that in this kind of dependent love, two people become one, but in the process, both lose their individuality. It is a union without integrity. This is the trap. What you might be calling a deep, profound love might actually be a well-disguised dependency. What you feel as an overwhelming passion might, in reality, be an addiction to the feeling of being important to someone. It functions just like a drug. When the other person chooses you and gives you their attention, you feel alive and euphoric. The moment they pull away, you experience a painful withdrawal. This hunger to be chosen has very deep roots that go far back, long before your adult relationships. It begins in childhood, in the way you were seen or not seen by the people who were supposed to teach you how to love yourself. That is why what we often call a search for love is actually an unconscious repetition of an old pain. It's an attempt to finally get now what we couldn't get back then, a feeling of being loved unconditionally. This cycle only breaks when you finally recognize that the source of your pain is not in your current situation, but in your past. The hurt you feel today is the echo of something that was never resolved long ago. To understand this, we have to look directly at the origin of this need. We need to trace it back to its emotional source, the wounded child that still lives inside you, asking for love in a quiet, choked voice. Have you ever wondered why, even as a grown adult, a certain look or a change in tone from a partner can make you feel as small and helpless as a 5-year-old? Why do you find yourself clinging so tightly and so quickly to anyone who shows you even a small amount of positive attention? Why does it feel like your entire world is ending when someone pulls away or just stops texting back? This isn't you being dramatic or overreacting. It is a child inside of you crying out for something it never received. While Erich Fromm didn't use the popular term inner child, the entire emotional framework he described points directly to this idea. The way we learn to love is formed in our earliest years, based on how we were loved, seen, or ignored by our caregivers. He noted that the experience of being separated is the single most intense source of anxiety for a human being. In childhood, this experience is felt with incredible force. A child is born completely dependent. It needs to be fed, protected, held, and validated. Above all, a child needs to feel emotionally safe. When this doesn't happen, or when the love they receive is conditional, inconsistent, absent, or used to manipulate them, an invisible wound is formed. This wound doesn't just heal with time. It hides under adult masks, showing up as forced independence, a pattern of impulsive relationships, a constant need to be desired, or a paralyzing fear of rejection. Fromm wrote about how many adults use relationships as a way to symbolically return to the womb, that state of perfect security and fusion. But he saw this as a step backward, not a form of growth. He contrasted two forms of love. The childish form says, "I love because I am loved." The mature form says, "I am loved because I love." That childish form of love is still active within you whenever you seek someone to love you first, so that you can then feel whole. This way of thinking is deeply emotional, not logical. The wounded child inside you learned that to receive love, it had to please others. It had to be useful, quiet, and not be a burden. Now, as an adult, you continue this pattern, endlessly trying to deserve love, to fit in, to be good enough for someone to stay. But the problem was never that you weren't worthy of love. The problem was that you learned that love was something you had to work for. This lesson shaped your entire understanding of affection and relationships. What you call love is often just this inner child replaying old survival strategies. If I am perfect, they won't leave me. If I make them happy, they will choose me. If they need me, they will love me. This is a cruel and exhausting cycle because no matter how much you do, how much you give, or how much you erase yourself, it will never be enough to silence the pain of the child who still believes love has to be earned. As long as you ignore this part of yourself, you will likely continue to attract relationships that only confirm this original wound. You will find partners and situations that reinforce your fears rather than heal them. But there is a way out. The healing doesn't come from another person. It won't be found in the next relationship, the next promise, or the next crumb of attention someone throws your way. Healing begins when you finally turn and look at this inner child, not with judgment, but with compassion. It begins when you stop expecting other people to fix something that is your responsibility to care for. And this is the first step on the path toward emotional maturity, the path toward what real love is. To love in a mature way is one of the most challenging and rewarding tasks of a human life. It's no surprise that most people struggle with it, because true loving is not the same as falling in love. It is not just desire, and it is not attachment. Loving, as Erich Fromm taught, is an act of courage. It's a conscious decision and a form of emotional discipline. This is precisely why it is so uncommon. It requires you to be a whole person before you even enter into a relationship. Fromm is very direct about this. He says that love is an activity, not a passive feeling. It is a state of standing in, not falling for. He famously described the active character of love by stating that loving is, above all, about giving, not receiving. This one idea is a major reality check because it shatters one of the most common illusions in our culture, the idea that love is something that just happens to us, a magical, involuntary accident. But Fromm says the exact opposite. Loving is an action, a practice, a daily commitment. It is a choice that you remake every single day, even when the initial excitement fades, even when your partner makes mistakes, and even when life becomes difficult. And here is the detail that reveals why most people are unprepared to truly love. You cannot give what you have not yet built within yourself. Fromm believed that the fundamental problem of human existence is our feeling of separation, and that love is the answer to this problem. However, only a person who has overcome their own inner separation can truly love another. In other words, as long as you feel broken or incomplete on the inside, you will use other people as a temporary patch. You will mistake their presence for your salvation. You will believe that just being with someone is enough, when in reality, to truly love is to choose to be with someone, even when it would be easier to walk away. This is only possible when you have already resolved the most difficult conflict of all, your relationship with yourself. Loving requires presence, and presence requires maturity. Most relationships don't fail because of a lack of feeling. They fail because of a lack of emotional structure. They are built on a foundation of people who confuse attention with love, attachment with connection, and neediness with surrender. Fromm insists that love is an art, and just like any other art form, it requires learning, patience, and practice. More than anything, perhaps, it requires humility. He wrote that anyone who wants to learn the art of loving must begin the same way one would begin to learn any other art, through discipline, concentration, and patience. But how many of us are truly willing to do this? How many are willing to stop trying to consume love like it's a product on a shelf, ready to be used and then thrown away when it's no longer convenient? To truly love is to swim against the current of our instant gratification culture. It means going against our own inflated ego and our deep-seated fear of being vulnerable. To truly love is to have the courage to be emotionally open and honest, with no guarantee that the other person will do the same, and to love them anyway. This is the point where love stops being a romantic fantasy and becomes an internal revolution. It's the moment you stop looking for someone to save you and start being someone who can build with another. It's when you stop begging for affection and start choosing to love, consciously, clearly, and responsibly. It's when you don't love because you need to, but because you want to. For this to happen, however, we must see and abandon one of the biggest emotional traps of our time, the way modern culture promotes an immature, childish version of love. The idea that loving is about being chosen, about pleasing, about fitting in, and that the other person's job is to fill our empty spaces. We live in a culture that packages love like a product. It's designed to be easy to consume and just as easy to discard. It's seductive at first glance, but ultimately superficial. Hollywood movies, social media feeds, and romantic songs all repeat the same sweet but dangerously false message, that to love is to find someone who completes you, someone who makes you happy, someone who will fill your voids with their presence and affection. But this is not love. This is emotional dependency dressed up in beautiful words. Erich Fromm recognized this long before the era of dating apps and social media. He wrote that in our culture, most people think that loving is simple, and that the only hard part is finding the right person to love, or to be loved by. This belief comes from the shallow idea that anyone can love easily. And that is the trap. People don't want to learn how to love. They just want to be loved, effortlessly. They want to experience intense romances without ever having to do the hard work of looking within themselves. They want to be desired without asking why they need that desire so badly. They want the other person to be a mirror that reflects back an idealized, perfect image of themselves, rather than a real encounter between two imperfect human beings. This infantilization of love begins the moment we turn a relationship into a fantasy, a place where the other person's primary role is to save us from ourselves. Fromm saw this as a major flaw in our society. We are not taught how to love. We are conditioned to desire things like status, beauty, approval, and pleasure. And we project all of these desires onto our partners. We want someone to prove to us that we're special, to rescue us from loneliness, doubt, and insecurity. But that's not a search for a partner. It's a search for a perfect parent, for someone to take on the emotional responsibility that should be our own. He also pointed out that in immature love, the other person is seen as an object of emotional consumption, something that must work for me to feel good. And here is the most uncomfortable truth. You might not be in a relationship with another person, but with the idea of what that person makes you feel. This explains why so many people don't truly love, they just cling. It explains why so many relationships end the moment the initial illusion shatters and reality sets in. Our culture trains us to desire intense sensations, not deep connections, to seek passion, not intimacy, to consume the other person, not to build something together. The result is a landscape of fragile, anxious relationships that are hypersensitive to the smallest sign of trouble. We see people who fall in love in an instant, but burn out even faster. We see loves that are based on expectations, not reality, on neediness, not choice. And all of this is constantly reinforced by a system that profits from our dissatisfaction. It sells us the promise that the next one will be better, that if you haven't found your soulmate yet, it's because you haven't tried hard enough to appear more desirable, more interesting, or more perfect. But true love doesn't happen in a showcase. It doesn't come from emotional marketing. It can only emerge when two people meet without the need to complete each other, but with the shared willingness to grow together. This requires a kind of self-awareness that goes against everything we've been taught about what it means to love. True love begins at the exact point where neediness ends. It does not grow from a place of lack, urgency, or the fear of being alone. It is born from presence, from your ability to stand as a whole person in front of another, without erasing yourself, without losing your identity, and without begging for them to validate you. As long as you still need to be chosen by someone else to feel valuable, you are not truly loving. You are simply trying to exist through their eyes. You are attempting to prove to yourself yet again that you are worthy of being seen. Real love has nothing to do with this. It is not a cry for help. It is not desperation disguised as passion. Authentic love is a choice. It is the natural expression of someone who has already found themselves, who already sees their own worth, who has faced their own emptiness and has decided to no longer use it as an excuse to depend emotionally on anyone else. You have likely spent so much of your life looking for someone to make you feel special. But what if you stopped today? What if you made the decision, right now, that your worth will no longer be measured by anyone else's opinion? This is precisely where freedom begins. The love that comes after this decision doesn't bind, it doesn't demand, and it doesn't suffocate. It shares, it adds, and it builds. It doesn't try to fill what is missing. It overflows from what is already there. Now is the time to ask yourself, if this message speaks to you, to make a commitment. Tell yourself, I do not need to be chosen to feel whole. Say this as a promise to yourself, because the moment you declare this, you begin to take back control of your own story and your own heart. This journey isn't about achieving perfection, but about embracing your true self. It's about finding your way back home to who you are, stepping out of any limitations, and finally recognizing the warmth and light of your own inherent worth. You deserve this. You always have. Thanks for watching. If this resonated, please like this video and subscribe to stay updated. I look forward to continuing this journey with you. Until next time, take care and be present.